Hello everyone. I wanted to talk to you today about the ethics of Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher who lived from 1724 to 1804. Kant wrote a very important book in the history of ethics called The Metaphysics of Morals in 1780. And in it he talks about some of the most lasting concepts in ethics, notions of a good will, duty, three categorical imperatives. So let's get underway with that. It is important, he says, to understand what it is to have an action be truly moral. It must, to be moral, proceed from a good will. And in that opening paragraph of the Metaphysics of Morals, he names some 11 goods: health, wealth, wisdom, others. But he says, as much as we recognize those to be goods, they all are dependent upon a good will. So you could call them conditional goods as opposed to absolute goods. If the person who has those goods or possesses them doesn't have a good will, this is all the more power for that, all the more reason that that person can commit evil. We can imagine a Hitler with power and health and wealth, but not a good will to make use of them. So what is a good will? Well, this illustration of the shopkeeper, two shopkeepers actually, it really puts it right on the mark for Kant. A good will, someone who acts with a good will is someone who does their duty. So the two shopkeepers, imagine the following. A child walks into the shop and pays for an item that is going to be 39 cents and gives the shopkeeper $1. So the child is due back 61 cents. And the shopkeeper, though, ruminates and thinks, well, he is a child, so I might be able to take advantage of him and shortchange him. But then finally says, well, if I do that, word may get out in the community that I cheat people, so it's in my best interest to give him the correct change. The second shopkeeper doesn't go through any such rumination. He thinks it's his duty to give the child back the correct change. And so Kant looks at the two examples and says, which one acted with moral worth? The first one acted from a motive of self-interest, didn't want to be found out. The second one acts from a motive of duty, doing the right action for the right action's sake. And Kant says only the second shopkeeper's action has moral worth, a term he uses more than once. So that's what it means to act from a motive of duty as opposed to acting in accord with duty. Now, to do one's duty, one must subject one's maxims to the categorical imperative. There are two categorical imperatives of the three that I want to talk about. The first categorical imperative says, act always such that the maxim of your action can be universalized. Now notice it's stated in the form of a command. Act always, not some of the time. It must determine your will, whether it's part of your desire or not. Act always such that the maxim of your action can be universalized. A maxim is the intent of an action. It's what lay underneath the action, so to speak. So if you help an elderly person across a busy intersection, the maxim of the action is not the action itself, but the reason for which you did it. Did you do it to be of assistance? Did you do it to get a nice tip because you know the elderly person is wealthy and is prone to giving tips? There are different maxims involved there. And then Kant says you have to universalize this maxim. Can a maxim be universalized is his supreme test and of the first categorical imperative, which I call, to distinguish it from the second, the universality principle. What would it be? What would a universe be like if all people acted on these maxims? Would I want to live in a world in which all people helped others only to get tipped or to be compensated or to be recognized? I think we can see that that would fail the test of the categorical imperative. The second maxim, if I did the action because it was the right thing to do, would we want to be could we universalize that maxim? And Kant thinks, yes, that's what we want, is that people act benevolently for duty's sake, not for the sake of any personal gain, not for inclination, as he puts it. So that's the test of a particular maxim, not the action. That's a frequent mistake with Kant. You're seeing if you can universalize the maxim. It's this little computer test, and actions get buzzed out that can't be universalized. The second categorical imperative says, act always so that you treat others and yourself as ends, never as means. And this is quoted in the social sciences, though it has real legs, but act always so that you treat others and yourself as ends, never merely as means. Merely is a key word here. To treat someone as an end, first of all, is to treat them as a rational being. as a being worthy of respect. Kant thinks the highest beings are the rational beings. He didn't have the same regard for lower beings. And so if you treat a being as an end, you're treating them with dignity, with respect. If you treat another person as a means, or yourself as a means, you're using that person. It's fine to use a tool. We can use a hammer to hit nails. But we can't use a person as a means to an end. So this might happen in a business context where you make believe you're the friend of someone and hoping that they'll write you a good report, or and that you'll get a promotion or something of that sort. That's using them as a means. So you're trying to get over on them. But never use them merely as a means. Is it ever all right to treat people as means? Yes, Kant would say, but never merely as a means. If someone works for you, presumably they elected to work for you, they're not forced, and they still maintain their autonomy and humanity. If you enslave them to work for you, on the other hand, then you are using them merely as a means, because they don't preserve their autonomy or self-governance, and this is not, you're not recognizing their humanity. So the word merely is key. Yes, it's I work for people, you work for people, people will one day work for you, and this is that is not a violation of the second categorical imperative necessarily. It's only if you're treating them merely as a means that it's a violation. All right, so these are some of Kant's main ideas: the maxims, the concept of duty, the categorical imperatives, and I'm going to give one illustration. He gives four what he calls illustrations of duty. And the one has to do with lying, what I call the lying promise. Really, a universal duty to others is never to lie. So always tell the truth. And he has an example of someone who borrows money and promises to pay it back, because after all, the lender will want to know when he or she will get the money back. And if you say, I'll give the money back to you on February 1st, but have no intention of doing that, then you've made a lying promise. Well, how is that different from a promise that you don't keep for other reasons? Well, if you made the promise to pay them back on February 1st and you were hurt badly before February 1st or lost your job and couldn't, still you had the intention to pay them back but could not. But if you never intended to pay them back but only said that so they would lend you the money in the first place, this is a lying promise. Can we universalize that maxim to give the lying promise? Well, Kant says the agent might say it's in my best interest to lie. I'll benefit $500 or however much money is lent. But the question, Kant says, is it right? Would we want to universalize a selfish maxim? Never for Kant. There are three kinds of motives: sympathy, duty, and selfishness. The only one that passes the test passes the high bar that he set for the moral action is is acting from motive of duty. So if I don't intend to pay the money back and say that I will, then we can't, he says, universalize that. So this is the duty to tell the truth is a duty to others. And also what Kant calls a perfect duty. Perfect, he contrasts that with imperfect, but a perfect duty is exceptionless. When you look at another duty like developing your talents, that is a duty of wide latitude or imperfect. The agent has some leeway as to what talent he or she will develop. But these first two duties, not to commit suicide and to tell the truth, are perfect duties. That is, they're without exception. So that's, there he's applying the categorical imperative. So even lies that are intended to save an innocent life are not allowable. In the case of someone like Anne Frank, who's being hid out in Amsterdam successfully for 18 months, you can't, if the Nazis were to come to the front door and say, are you hiding Jews in the house, you'd have to say yes, and tell them where. According to Kant, this is the right thing to do. If you were to lie, you'd save the life. But Kant would say that that's still the wrong thing to do. W.D. Ross, a British philosopher of the 20th century, says that it may be the case that Kant is the only person in the history of Western ethics who thinks it's always wrong to tell a lie. The utilitarians will have a different take on this. If a lie promotes general well-being, or it does something like save a life, then the result is good, and they wouldn't say the lie was wrong in every instance. So there's a difference on that in that regard. And so these are key concepts with Kant, and the idea of duty, maxims, categorical imperatives, and so I just wanted to introduce you to some of these concepts today. I hope you've gained something from that. Thank you.